This begins Descriptive Statistics, Part B of Making Sense of Statistics. We're on Section 6, Frequencies, Percentages, and Proportions. When we are talking about frequency, we are talking about the number of participants or cases. The symbol for frequency is the lowercase f italicized. If you were being asked a question on symbol for frequency, you should write the symbol for frequency is a lowercase f italicized. Also, N, capital N, italicized, means the number of participants. It is also often used to stand for frequency. So if you see in a report that the frequency is equal to 23 for a score of 99, you know that 23 participants had a score of 99. So as I mentioned previously, frequency, if a report says the frequency equals 23 for a score of 99, then you know that 23 participants had a score of 99. If a report says an N equals 23 for a score of 99, then you also know that 23 participants had a score of 99. When we are talking about percentage, the percentage indicates the number per 100 who have a certain or specific characteristic. So when we say percent, we are really saying per 100. And the symbol is a percent sign, which if you are typing can be located above the number 5 on your keyboard. Here again, if you are told that 44% of the registered voters in a town are registered Democrats, you know that for each 100 registered voters, 44 are Democrats. How do we calculate a frequency using a percentage? So we have an example of 44% of registered voters in the town are Democrats. We convert 44% to a decimal. We move the decimal 2 places to the left. The town has 2,200 registered voters. So to determine the frequency or the number of Democrats, we take 0.44, which is the decimal representation of 44%, times the number of registered voters, which then equals our frequency of 968 Democrats. So the above statement tells you that for every 100 registered voters, there are 44 Democrats. Now let's calculate again the 44% to decimal. See here again, we move it 2 places to the left. The town has 2,200 registered voters. We are determining the frequency or the number of Democrats. We have 44.44 times 2,200 equals 968 Democrats. I wanted to repeat that twice so you could see 2 times the calculating the frequency. Being afraid of the dark, the same population of gifted, you would expect 26 of them to be afraid of dark. So now the 22 divided by 8 yields a proportion, 0.2619. 0.2619 is the proportion of gifted children afraid of the dark, and a proportion is a part of 1. So when we are looking at a proportion being a part of 1. Now let's look at the above statement. 22 divided by 84 equals 0.2619. So that statement tells us that 26 hundredths of the children is afraid of the dark. And so since proportions are kind of difficult to interpret, many times we just simply use percentage. But do not be surprised if you occasionally encounter proportions in research reports. Now, we also need to report our frequency along with our percentage, because percentages by themselves can be misleading, or they can fail to give us sufficient information. So, for example, we read that 8% of foreign language students at WSSU were Russian majors. But what if we knew that the frequency was 12, which equaled 8%? And what that indicates is 12 students study Russian out of 150 total foreign language students at WSSU. Now let's also say that WSSU has 150 foreign language students and Wake Forest has 350 foreign language students. Well, we look at the total number of foreign language students, and then we look at the percentage of Russian majors as well as the frequency of Russian majors. If we looked at that, we might say, oh, well, if we're only looking at the percentage, WSSU has twice as many Russian majors, 8% instead of 4% compared to Wake Forest, as Wake Forest. But then if we actually look at the frequency per the number based on the total of foreign language students, we then see that Wake Forest actually has 2 more Russian majors than WSSU. So who has the most foreign language students? So we look at the frequency indicated by N. We can say that Wake Forest has the most foreign language students, and looking at our frequency indicated by N, who has the most Russian majors, if we look at our frequency, we see that Wake Forest has the highest frequency of Russian language majors. But if we look at percent, we have a higher percentage of Russian majors at WSSU. So you now see why we should report our frequency along with our percentage.